Yes, so I study population biology, which is trying to understand how the number of, say, plants or animal or viruses change over time and change across space. And those can be questions that are either part of ecology or conservation biology or epidemiology, the spread of diseases, or questions in population genetics. Some of the types of questions that I'm interested in population biology are trying to understand why do some populations go quickly extinct, and why do they go extinct, and why do other populations seem to persist for an extended period of time. And these are questions clearly that might be of interest of conservation. If there's a species that's a charismatic species that people enjoy, you'd like to prevent their extinctions. On the other hand, it also might be where you might want to sort of encourage extinction if it's a species that you're trying to control, such as the coronavirus right now. And some of the other questions that I'm interested in are when you have different species interacting, which is often the case. They might have negative or positive interactions. How does the nature of their interactions determine whether they can coexist for long periods of times? Or sometimes it might be one tends to drive the other extinct, and if that happens, why does it happen? Can you predict when it's more likely to happen? So those are the types of questions that people in population biology are interested in, as well as many, many more. And mathematics certainly has played an important role there. Yes, so in this area, mathematics has, for a very long time, played an important role in understanding how numbers of organisms change over time and as a tool to answer the questions I mentioned before. And there's probably at least three ways that mathematics plays an important role. One is it can develop new hypotheses. A second way is that it can be used sort of as a retrospective tool, so you can look back in time of something that had happened already and try to understand why it happened the way it did. And then it can also be used as a prospective tool, a tool to look toward the future, to understand how might you manage or change an outcome in a system. So some examples of that would be, so for instance, as a sort of retrospective tool, one of the examples I've been interested in was there were some local extinctions of a very charismatic, beautiful butterfly species from California called bay checker spot butterfly. And the question is, why did they go extinct? And there was a hypothesis that Paul Ehrlich from Stanford University suggested, which was he thought that increased variability in precipitation, so that there was more years with high levels of precipitation, years with low levels of precipitation might have caused the extinctions of these two populations. But how would you test such a hypothesis? I mean, because it's already happened. And of course, as experimentalists, biologists can't go back in time. That's not possible. They can't change the weather even if they can go back in time. But models allow you to do that. So one way of tackling a question like that is to develop models that describe the data you have, that give you some confidence in how well they can maybe describe the system you're interested in. And then you can do the things that you could never do in an experiment. You can go back in time. You can create different regimes of climate, some with lots of variation in precipitation, some with less, and determine whether or not that variation in precipitation might have been a contributor to the extinction of these populations, which in this case the answer is it was. So that's one way that the models are extremely useful in sort of trying to dissect by looking in the past what might have been responsible for what you observed. As far as hypothesis generating, one of the key questions in sort of population biology is what allows different types of populations to coexist. That's especially important if you're looking at either different genotypes of the same species because they're competing a lot, or even if you're looking at distinct species, like different plant species competing for the same resources like water availability or light availability. And so mathematical models have provide a critical role in sort of developing different hypotheses about what might allow species to coexist. So that might be things fluctuating in time. So it's, like in the previous example, maybe it's rainfall varying in time, and that some periods are better for one species, other periods are better for another species, and that might allow them to coexist. And people like Peter Chesson at University of Arizona have developed very precise ways of determining when that variation in time could lead to coexistence. And then that generates a hypothesis, and then you can sort of test either experimentally or retrospectively whether that hypothesis is playing a role for any pair of species or collection of species you're interested in. And so there's certainly been cases where they've shown that it's very likely that this variation in time as one mechanism is helping many species to coexist. So it's a positive impact rather than the previous example where variation in time could be harmful to a species. And then, of course, the third way that these models are useful is sort of prospectively. If you have a system and you want to be able to manage it in the future, whether we're talking about an outbreak of coronavirus, or we're talking about managing some endangered species, or whether we're trying to manage overfished marine populations, the mathematical models give you ways to play with different scenarios of the future to sort of identify which approach, at least according to the models, might be the best way to achieve your goals, your management goal, like eradicate the coronavirus or to ensure long-term harvesting of some certain marine populations and so forth. Yeah. And this is, one of, first of all, it's a beautiful, amazing location. I know that's, but it's a unique opportunity for specialists in many areas of mathematics to sort of learn from each other the insights they're gaining in different parts of population biology. So over the past week, I've been hearing talks looking at very different types of questions, some of them asking questions about ancestry of individuals, some of them looking at questions of sort of spatial spread of diseases, and you start to see or learn about like maybe how different methods from different areas can sort of cross-fertilize, help each other out, or it might be that you often get to meet people just on these sort of the time between the talks and start developing potential collaborations with them. I think it's, so it's a really unique opportunity, and it's done in a really nice way that you can't help but enjoy the whole experience. And I think this is my second time here, and each time I've come out with future collaborations and new ideas. And so I think it's, an extremely important component of these types of conferences are extremely important component for making new science and successful science. So.